There you go. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Declan. Hi, everybody. Hope you're all well. Hope you all had a good break from the assignments over Christmas, and that you're ready and relaxed and refreshed and ready for round two. So, as Declan said, what I will do is I will take you through the mock exam, and that's going to take up most of the session. Okay. And in the interest of time, what I will do is I will just send you on the multiple choice answers. I'm not going to focus on any of the multiple choice questions because by the time we have that completed, the session will be well over. What I will do is I'm going to focus on the four longer questions that were in the mock paper, okay? But when the session is over, I have them loaded up and ready to go. I will fire on the answers to the mock MCQ questions. And if you want to read through any of that, by all means do so. Okay. So I'm going to spend most of my time focusing on the four short questions. Then the four long questions. What I will then do is I will put the mock paper away. I will open up the real paper. Unfortunately, only I'll be able to see it. But what I will do then is, as Declan said, is I'll give you some guidance as to topics to cover and give you an idea as to which of the questions you may want to answer. Okay, because there are four long questions. On the real paper, you only have to do two of them, so you can make a choice as to which ones. You can do more if you want, but there are only two. We are going to mark the two best ones. Okay. So we'll get right into it. So hopefully you had a chance at least to have a look at the mock paper anyway. If you didn't, don't panic. But hopefully you had a chance to at least have a look at it. But there are four questions on the mock paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through and give you an idea as to how you might answer them if they came up in the real exam. Okay. So the first question on the mock paper was nice short one, quite simply, write a welcome letter for a business to send to another business. Okay. And in terms of how to answer that, there is a sample welcome letter on page 59 of module one. So if you want to have a look at that, you can have a look at it now or you can have a look at it later, but there is a sample on page 59 of module one. Okay. And when we're sending a letter to another company, there are six things in terms of the example that's on page 59. The six things that I've identified that are key to include in there. So I'm going to cover those off now. Okay. So the letter that is on page 59 of module one starts with, Dear so and so, your new account has just been opened and we look forward to doing business with you. My name is Paul and I will be looking after your account. Okay. All right. So that covers off the first of the 6 points that I'm hoping to do. You introduce yourself and you advise you that you're going to be looking after their account. Okay. All right. Nice, simple introduction. Okay. Second line that's in the letter is your invoices will be sent to whatever address. We understand that you have or you have not got a purchase order system in place, and I will ensure your requirements are complied with at this end. Okay, so that's a fairly bright and breezy statement, but what it is doing is there's a couple of useful things that it's doing in there. One, it's confirming the address that the invoices are going to be sent to. Okay. And how many times, if you work solidly in collections, how many times have you heard the excuse, oh, I don't have a copy of that invoice. Could you send it through to me? Okay. What you're saying here is you are confirming the address, be it a physical address or an email address that you are going to be sending the invoices to. And then you're making a second statement, which is, we understand that you have or that you have not, so you adjust it depending on what the situation is, a PO system in place. So again, similar to the invoice scenario, how many times have you heard a scenario of, well, there's no PO on the invoice, therefore I can't pay it, okay? So what you're doing there is you're gently removing, keeping in mind, the whole point of credit management is to get paid and get paid on time, okay? What you're doing there is you're gently removing a couple of excuses that customers may use to delay payment. Okay. One, I never got the invoice. And two, well, yes, I did get the invoice, but the PO system, there's no PO on it. Okay. And what you're doing there is you're confirming your understanding. So you can refer back to that later and say, well, we sent you a letter on this date, and we did confirm that you did not have a PO system in place. And now you're telling us you do. So it just makes it a little bit harder for the customer to use those excuses later on. Okay. The third thing we say in the letter is we pride ourselves on the accuracy, timeliness, and clarity of our invoicing. Okay. So that's the third point that we're raising. So what we're saying there is we're going to send you your invoices on time. the invoices are going to be correct when we send them to you. Okay. We pride ourselves on on our accuracy and timeliness. So we're going to do things on time and we're going to do them right. Okay. And there's a whole section in the notes of right first time. And the whole point of getting things right first time, in addition to being efficient, is that it significantly increases the chances of you being paid on time. So you're saying to your customer, listen, we're going to get things right. Okay. Not everyone is. Okay. But we're going to get things right. Should you have any issues or require any additional information to make your job easier, let me know on my direct line, which is the following, and I will do everything I can to help. Okay, so again, you're referring back to another excuse that is sometimes used, which is, well, I had some issues or I had some questions, but I had a look and I Googled your company and I couldn't find the right number. The right number, all going well, depending on whatever way your company is set up, it will be there on the letter. Okay, so you're saying, okay, I'm Paul, this is my phone number. If you have questions, you can reach me. Okay. So again, it's another excuse that you're beginning to remove from what is a fairly bright and breezy letter. There's some subtle things in there which are helping you to get paid on time. Our credit terms are, and state exactly what the credit terms are. And we look forward to receiving payment each month on or before that date. Okay, so you're reminding them clearly that you have 30 days, you have 45 days, you have 60 days, or whatever it is you do have before you can pay. And you will clearly say from invoice date, from 28th of the month, whatever it is, you will clearly state the credit terms in such a way that there should be no ambiguity as to when payment is due. And then the last point that we make in the letter is, in response to your request, we are delighted to extend you a line of credit of X. Should you wish to revise this facility at any time, please let me know. Okay, so another reason that issues may occur is when customers exceed their credit line. You've confirmed clearly what the credit line is there. Yes, it's possible they may not keep track of it, but you have clearly stated what the credit line is. So again, that removes or makes it less likely or a little bit harder for the customers to ring up and say, why is my order on hold, and other problems that they may encounter. Okay, so that's the type of thing we're looking for. There's an example of it on page 59 of module 1, as I said. That's the type of thing we're looking for as an answer for the first of the long questions. So pause there for a minute. Any questions on that? No? Okay, super. Okay, so the second question, if you're following along on the mock paper, the second question is this: bit of a longer one, slightly longer one this time, but still reasonably short. Question 2 is: what information should you include on a new account application or new customer information sheet, and why do you require it? You can use either a consumer or a trade form. Please state which one at the start of your answer. Okay. So I'll come to in terms of examples or in terms of additional information that you can use to help you answer the question. The trade application form answers are on pages 26 to 37 of module 1. Okay, so if you want to see what type of information we recommend including, you can find that on pages 26 to 37 of module 1. That's for the trade application form. For the consumer application form, it's just a little bit later. It's on pages 45 to 50. So that gives you an example, or more than one example, of a trade application form or a consumer application form. Okay. So I'll go through the two of them. I'll start with the trade application form. As I did mention, you probably haven't remembered it, but it's kind of ingrained in my head. But what I did mention when we kicked off this course is, for credit application forms, there's 30 or 40 or maybe more things you can ask in a trade application form. But for me, all of them should be linked to 3 core things. Okay, there's 3 core things that we're trying to do that we're trying to find out when we send a trade application form to be completed by our customers. The first one is, we're trying to collect some credit information to establish whether or not to establish what the risk of trading is with this company. Sorry, was there a quick question there? No? No, sorry. Okay. So the first thing is, we're trying to get enough credit information to adequately manage the risk of trading with the company. So the types of questions we'd be asking there would be, okay, what's the company's legal name? So if we run into difficulties, we have it. What type of business is it? Is it a sole trader? Is it a partnership? Is it a limited company? What is the registration number of the company? Has the company traded under anything else in the last 3 years? What else? How much do you expect to spend with us every month? How long have you been in business? Do you own your premises, or are they leased? Can you provide some trade references? So those are the types of questions we're asking. And the reason we're asking them is to try to establish, okay, what sort of risk are we taking on if we're going to go into business with this customer? Okay, so everything ties back to that. That's one of the three reasons that we have the trade application form. The second one is we're, again, similar to the letter, we're trying to remove excuses for not paying by the due date. Okay, so what information can we get hold of that'll help us ensure that things go right, that the customer is getting the products and the invoices and the statements where and when they're expecting them, and as a result, removing excuses for them paying late. Okay, so things like the delivery address. Where are we going to send the products? Is the delivery address the same as the invoicing address? Is that where we're going to send the invoices and statements? Are we going to send the invoices and statements by email, or are we going to actually physically send them through? There's no point in physically sending them through when the customer says, but I need them by email. And there's no point in sending them by email when they say, but I need hard copies and I don't have time to print them out. You're going to ask the question about the POs. Okay, do you need POs? Yes or no? How are you expecting to get your invoices delivered? How are you expected to get your statements delivered? Are you VAT exempt? Do you require delivery dockets? So those type of questions are all linked to removing excuses. If you get a clear and concise credit application form which clearly answers those questions, you have a good idea as to what the customer is expecting, and as a result, more likely to receive payments on time. And then the final thing that we include in our credit application form is, in the event that we don't get paid on time, do we have enough contact details to put pressure on the customer to collect the money? Okay, so do we have the correct name? Do we have the correct address of the customer? Do we have a number of phone numbers that we can use? Do we have email addresses we can use? Okay, who is your accounts payable contact, because they're the people that are more than likely going to be pressing the button to actually release the payment? Do you have a contact in purchasing, because they're the people who may well have put the order? Do you have an escalation point? If it's a relatively small company, do you have the name of the managing director? Do you have enough contact details to allow you to adequately put pressure? And this, it sounds, when you're completing the form, it kind of sounds like, we probably won't need all this. We could probably live without it. But I guarantee, when it's your number one customer and it's your number one overdue, if you find that the phone numbers and the email addresses are missing, it's not good. Okay. Because that's when you move into panic mode. Okay. So having these sorted and ready from the beginning, are very important. Okay, so that's the type of thing we're looking for on the trade application form. So what you would do if you got that question is you would call out, okay, this is what I'm going to ask for, but you would need to call out also why you're asking for it. Okay, so you could do that a couple of ways. You could either put the explanation next to it, and we're not looking for novels. But just a quick explanation as to each one. You can maybe code them and say, okay, these are the three reasons that Paul says he sends an application form. These all link to number one, these all link to number two, and these all link to number three. You could do it that way, or you could potentially complete put a full form in place, and then underneath it say, okay, I'm asking for these things, and this is why I'm asking for them. So you have a number of different options if that question were to come up in the real exam. Okay, so I will deal with consumer ones in a minute, but I will just pause for a moment and to see, does anyone have any questions on any of that?
Will there be a word count on these specific questions, or?
Well, a strict word count, no. Good question. It's one that regularly comes up, so a good chance to address it. Strictly speaking, no would be the short answer. In terms of guidance as to how long you might spend, the credit application form now might be a bit of an anomaly because there's a good bit you could put in there. But in terms of regular questions, I'd probably maybe looking for about 800 words or so. I mean, the assignments were 1,500. It's not the assignments. You won't really have time to produce 1,500 quality words for each of the answers. If you do, fantastic. But and you'll probably score well. But as a guidance, I'd probably be looking for in the region of maybe about 800 words. I think a good 800 words, which doesn't have much repetition or much waffling, and clearly sticks to the question, that probably should be sufficient to give a good answer for a question. Yeah,
as long as the whats and the whys and things like that.
Yeah, as long as you stick to as long as you're tying everything back to it. If you find yourself repeating, then repeating is okay because you're really drilling in the point, but you probably need to go to a little bit higher a higher
Mm,
word count of that. So I wouldn't be obsessed on the word count. It's more a case of you answer the question. But yeah, I mean, if it's too short, if it's 200-300 words, you may want to think, okay, well, is there more that I could put in there?
mm,
Some people go quite, some people get quite a bit in there in their half hour, So, if you find yourself kind of, and if you think it's good, relevant stuff, keep going,
okay.
you
Mm,
will score high, as long as it ties into the
the
answer.
question. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Paul.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Kathy.
Hiya. Are we kind of just doing up a credit application form and then basing the letter off that and kind of explaining it? Is that, sorry, I don't know whether I'm going to lose my train there.
Well, they're separate questions. So I mean, you could do the letter and you could do the application form, and then you'd be done, okay? Because there's two
Yeah.
questions, okay? But they are separate questions, so you don't necessarily have to do both.
All
You could
right.
do the
Okay.
you could do the letter and forget about the application form, or you could do the application form and forget about the letter. But I mean, in answer to the first part of your question, is that what we're looking for? Yes, we're looking for the letter. Um, Looking for the letter, and we're looking for the application form. And specifically asked in the application form is, okay, why are you asking for it? So you would need to make sure you answer it. In terms of the letter, if you phrase the letter carefully, and as long as it's in your head that you're saying, okay, I'm putting this into the letter, and this is why I'm putting it into the letter, you don't necessarily have to put the why bit down. Um,
Hmm.
but if you want to add a little short paragraph afterwards, you're
Just the
certainly
train
you'll
of
probably
thought kind
you'll
of.
probably get, this is my train of thought. There'll probably be some extra marks in it there for you, right? Yep.
All right, Grant. No
Yep.
worries.
Okay. So we'll quickly look at the consumer one. So you're not going to do both of these, okay? You do one or the other, and it'd probably be. I spent most of my time when I was in collections in or credit in the trade to trade stuff. So that's the one I'm most comfortable with. So I would recommend you do the same if you make your living from working on the consumer side. Then maybe focus on the consumer side. So on the consumer side, there's two things we're looking for rather than three. I mean, the contact details piece. The contact details piece is a key one on the consumer side of things. So, what you're looking for there is, okay, do I have the person's name? Do I have the person's address? Do I have the person's phone number? If applicable, and they've given me permission to talk to them at work, do I have a work number for them? Do I have a mobile number for them? Do I have an email address? So, do you have sufficient contact details? Those are the types of things that you put into a consumer application form to ensure that you can contact them in the event that you need to. Um, the rest of the application form is on the consumer side is dealt with the risk side of things. Okay, so essentially, what whoever is extending credit is looking for is, okay, how much money is going to be coming in, and how much money is going to be coming out of this person's bank account every month. So a couple of things they'll be looking for is, okay, number. They may ask number of dependents. Okay, so that gives an indication as to, okay, are you just paying, in terms of your income, do you just have to support yourself, or do you have to support others? Okay, how long are you at the address? Okay, so that gives an idea of stability, and how, if you're there 5 years, you're probably more likely to still be there on the sixth year than if you're there maybe 3 months. Okay, how long? What were your previous addresses? If you're here less than 5 years, are you renting? Do you own? Do you live with parents? What is your residential status? Your employment details. Okay, so who do you work for? Where do you work? That'll give them an idea. I mean, if you're working for somebody who's a company who unfortunately is on the verge of, and it's in the public press, is on the verge of going bankrupt, they may be less keen to extend credit to you. It's not your fault, but they may be less keen to extend credit to you. How long are you there? What is your position in the company? So if you're at an entry level position, then that says one thing. If you're the managing director, that potentially is another thing. Okay. If you're there less than 3 years, who are the last couple of people you work with? So they're looking for stability. What sort of money do you have coming in? And then in terms of your monthly pay after taxes are paid, what's your net income? And then they will look at other commitments. Okay, do you have credit cards? Do you have overdrafts? Do you have other loans? Do you have childcare costs? Do you have to pay mortgage or rent? Yes or no? So all of it is linked into. So there's a lot of different things that you can ask. If you work in the business, you're probably fairly familiar with them. But there's a lot of different things you can ask. But essentially, what they're looking for is money in and money out. Okay, how much is coming in? How much is there likely to be left over? And based on that, can you afford credit? And then the second one is the contact details. Okay, phone numbers, email addresses, work numbers, if you've given permission for that, physical address. Do we have the right name on the account? That type of stuff. Okay. So that's what we're looking for. And there's example, as I said, pages 45 to 50 on module 1 will give you a good example as to what we're looking for a consumer application form. Okay. So that's the end of question 2. If there's any questions, I'll take them now. If not, I'll move on to question 3. Super. Okay. So question 3. Question 3 is describe in detail the steps you would take to improve cooperation and teamwork with the other departments in your business. Okay. So this hits the nail on the head in terms of one of the 2 T's in the attack model. Okay. And the details as to how to do this are on pages 20 and 21 of module 3. Okay. So pages 20 and 21 of module 3 talk a bit about how to work with other departments in your business. Okay. And the types of departments, what's covered in the notes is this. What the types of departments you'd be talking about would be, for instance, marketing. Okay. So marketing will have a good say in terms of the strategic direction of the company. So if they're going to be launching new products, if they're going to be targeting new markets, if they're going to be either new demographic markets, i.e. we're going to go after younger people, we're going to go after older people, or maybe new geographical regions, we're going to start doing business in this country. The marketing department will have a big say in what is happening strategically. So first of all, you want to build your relationship with the marketing department. You want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to Bob or Mary or whoever it is that is running the marketing department, or whoever is your equivalent in the marketing department, so that you get a good sense as to ahead of time as to what directions they might go in, so you can call out any requirements that you might need in relation to if you are going to be, say, for instance, let's just take an example. If you're going to start doing business in France, here are some additional points we would ask you on the credit collection side to keep in mind. The aim of the exercise is never to say no, but the aim is to say, okay, if you want to do business in France, we would need the following things to be taken into consideration, or the following changes to be made, or we would need to be involved for the following reasons. But something that would kind of say, okay, we're not saying no, but this is what we would need in order to say yes. Okay. But working closely with the marketing team, getting them having a relationship so that they will give you the heads up in terms of where the strategic direction of the company is going, having regular catch-ups, be they formal or informal, with people in the marketing team, so you know what their plans are in advance, and you have an opportunity to get your requirements noted before they launch, would be very important and a very useful way of, as I said, all of this is tied into getting paid on time. Another team that you may well be working with would be the sales team. Okay. It'd be very rare you wouldn't be working with them. So historically, the perception is, as I said I remember saying this in the introductory lecture. Historically, the perception is, okay, in sales, sales try to make the sales, and then credit collections kind of block some of the sales from going through. So a very kind of combative kind of a perception. Okay. So, it doesn't need to be that way. Again, similar to marketing, the aim would be that sales would, on the 1st or the 10th or whatever is the appropriate date, would give you an idea. Okay, listen, these are the customers that we're targeting this month, and these are the type of deals, size of deals that we're looking to get them to make the purchases on. Can you on the collection side have a look and see, is there any reason why these deals would not go through? Okay. And what you can do is you can color code them and say, right, these ones are green because they always pay on time and they have plenty of credit to allow for a sale of that size. These are the orange ones because they're close to their credit limit, or maybe they have some minor payment issues. And these are the red ones because these guys are already overdue, or they're already well over their limits. So unless they pay for the last deal, they're not going to be getting the next one. Okay. So that is a good example as to how to work with the sales team. Another team you're probably going to be working with will be operations. There's 2 or 3 reasons why you may well be working with operations. One, you want the orders to be processed correctly first time. Okay, so that ties back to right first time. And operations are, as the name suggests, they are a key part of the order to cash process. We're not just dealing with getting paid on time. We're dealing with the entire order to cash process when we work in our business. So you want things processed correctly first time. So you need to work with them to ensure that happens. Secondly, if things go wrong, you need to ensure credit notes are processed in a timely manner. Okay. So you need to build that relationship there. So, I mean, the way I used to work was, okay, listen, I will work hard at month end to release the orders that you need to release, and to find ways of making it possible for as much of the billing to go through as possible can happen. But in return, during the quiet parts of the month, early in the month when month end is over, can you focus on getting some credit notes through for me that I need processed in order for me to make my targets and in order for the customer to see that we fix mistakes quickly when they happen. And the final reason you might need operations is to make sure the master data is correct, depending on the type of business you're in. In some places, operations would be involved in setting up the accounts or making changes to them, and you want to make sure they're done correctly as well. So, so the way I used to do was I had daily kind of huddles with the operations team. Maybe not in week 1 of the month, but from week 2, 3, and 4. Daily operations, they'd say, right, these are our priorities for the day, and I'd be saying in return, these are my priorities for the day. Let's work together to get them done. And then finally, you'd have things like service departments. Okay, so with service departments, what you don't want is a scenario where the number one customer that you cannot get hold of for love or money is ringing a service department in another part of the building and is getting brilliant service from them, despite the fact that they're well overdue on their account. Okay, so either manually through a list or through something a bit more automated, you need to have a scenario where if people ring through who are severely overdue on their account, that the call will be passed to you before any of that good service is delivered. Okay, so if you want to do it in kind of very basic manner, you can print out a list and say, okay, listen, if any of these people call from these companies, I need you to pass the call through to me because I need to talk to them. Or if you have a more automated system, you can potentially have a scenario where a flag or an alert comes up whenever the call comes through that says, okay, listen, this account is not in line with the credit terms. It needs to be passed over to collections for a discussion. Okay. So those are the type of things, and those are the type of examples. I mean, examples would be, on that type of question, examples would be very useful because it gives a clear understanding that you know what it is that you're talking about. So you're not just saying work with operations, work with sales, work with marketing. You're saying this is an example of how you would work with sales, with marketing, with operations. Any questions on that before I move on to question 4?
Yeah, Paul, sorry. Would
Sure.
we just answer this the same way we kind of answered the assignment we had there in December that we sent off, that the changes we would introduce, is it?
It wouldn't be changes, no. It'd be maybe slightly different. It'd be well, I mean, on this, I mean, if you got one on the changes, I mean, we've well covered off the changes of this side, so I can safely say there's not a question on the exam that says, okay, what changes would you make now that you've done the course? But in terms of this particular question, it relates more to how you would work with your colleagues, because you are going to need operations. Operations, for instance, are a key part of the order to cash process. So if things are going to run smoothly, you are going to have to work with operations. So maybe have a bit of a think as to how you would work with operations to make things better for the credit collections team. And then there's the sales team as well, because they have a key part in it. And then there is maybe less crucial, but you do have the services department as well. So it'd be detailed breakdown as to how you would work with them. If you can apply it to your own business, all the better, because that's going to make it very real, and have some good examples in there.
Grant. And then the same kind of word count as the last one, about 800, is it?
Similar. I'd probably target. I wouldn't get obsessed on word count, but yeah, I'd be looking. I think in the region. I knew this question would come up, so I had to kind of think and say, well, what is realistic and what have I seen before? So yeah, I think in and around 800 is kind of what I've seen before in terms of length of answers. Yeah.
Hang on, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so we'll move on to question 4. So question 4 is using specific examples from your own company, describe how you would ensure that a visit to one of your key customers was successful. You can either choose a visit, which would involve a financial review with your customer, or a more general visit. Please indicate which option you have chosen. Okay. So let me see. So first of all, this information is in module 4. Excuse me, and it's covered off on pages 3 to 7, and then there's some additional information on pages 12 to 13. Okay, So it says for the question, do call out the type of meeting that you're going to have. If it's a financial review meeting, just say it's a financial review meeting and cover that. You don't need to cover a more general visit. If it's in relation to a more general visit or query management, call that out from the start and cover that. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to cover off what a general visit would look like because there's 2 or 3 different options there. But if you want to describe a financial review visit where you actually go through numbers, that is covered off in the notes on pages 8 to 13. Okay, so those are they're in the middle. So the general ones are covered off pages 3 to 7, and then a little bit more on pages 12, 13. The financial review ones are covered off between pages 8 and 11, and then it drifts into more general stuff on pages 12 and 13, which could apply to financial review meetings, but also more general meetings. Okay. So do make sure that. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to tell you how to do a general meeting. Okay. All right. So the first one is do your homework. I mean, beforehand. I mean, it's similar to if you're making a phone call. If you're making a phone call, you're not just going to ring and kind of say, oh, let's see where we are at in terms of your credit line. Let's see how we're at in terms of kind of sales. Let's see how we're at in terms of payments. You will have a look first and say, right, the key messages I want to get through in my call are this. It's the same when you're doing a visit. Okay. So do have a look beforehand. Okay. How are sales going? Are payments arriving on time? Does the credit line maybe need to be looked at? Is it too high or too low? You cover off those type of things. So same type of things you do in a call. Okay. Arrive at the meeting, use the trick of explaining traffic was light and you're happy to wait. You sit and wait in reception and have a little bit of a listen as to what's going on. Is the phone ringing off the hook in reception with suppliers looking to get payment? What are people saying when they stop off and talk to the person behind reception? What's the kind of mood in the business like? Okay. If you're, depending on the type of business that you're involved in, ask, can you have a tour of the warehouse or factory? Okay. And in terms of the warehouse factory, what that's going to give you, all of these are kind of subtle kind of hints that'll help you. What it'll give you is when you're in the warehouse, if you see that your goods are near the front, that means they're accessed regularly and your bargaining position is pretty high. If they're buried in the back and the person who's bringing you on the tour can says, now let me see, where do we keep your items again? It kind of shows you're maybe not as critical to them as maybe other suppliers are. So that just gives you an idea as to what your bargaining position is like. Okay. In the terms of the meeting itself, find out what their requirements are. I mean, a key thing is find out as much as you can about the payment process. Okay. How close to the due date can the invoice be approved and still paid on time? What is the cutoff? Okay. What needs to happen for that approval to happen? Who makes the approval? What is needed? What are the steps that lead up to the approval? So, work backwards. I mean, you can work backwards or you can work forwards, but certainly work through the process and try to find out as much as you can. Okay. So how many people are involved? Who are the people involved? Meet them if you can and find out, okay, what is it that's needed in order for you I need the payment on the 28th. What do you need in place by the 22nd, by the 15th, by the 10th in order to allow for that payment to be made on time? Okay. And then when the meeting is over, if there's issues that you've been looking to address, come to a resolution, document what it is that has been agreed, and send those minutes very quick. Well, not 5 minutes afterwards, but do send them pretty quickly, certainly within 24 hours, back to your contact. Thank you for their time. Said, okay, the following has been agreed. These are the steps we're going to take. And in the meeting itself, try to agree, okay, if things have gone wrong, how do we make sure they don't happen again? Okay. And if you're in a meeting where, okay, the account is significantly overdue and you have a lot of queries and a lot of things that need to be resolved, if it's a call, bring the purchasing manager onto a call, bring your own sales manager onto a call, and act as not the referee, that's the wrong term, but act as the coordinator of the meeting. So don't take sides, but kind of say, okay, there is this issue, how do we resolve it? There is that issue, how do we resolve it? And your aim is to get the sales team to either agree that a credit note is due and to sign off on that there and then, or the purchasing manager on the customer side to agree, yes, we agree that we received that product or service, and we agree we're going to make payment, and then you agree, okay, well, when are you going to make payment? Okay. All right. So those are the types of things that we're looking for in terms of question 4. If you're going to give us an idea, there's a lot you can put in there. Okay, so time management might be key if you're doing that one, but there's a lot in there. So a good opportunity to really show off. And again, if you've done it customer visits yourself, or if you haven't and you can imagine what a customer visit like, put the information in. Okay, it doesn't need to be real. If it was a disaster, you can still say it was a success. It doesn't need to be real. I won't be checking. Okay. But for the purposes of beefing up the answer and giving a good solid answer and showing that you understand how to manage a customer visit, examples would be very useful. So those are the 4. So before I move on to the real paper, which I know is where everyone is going to really take note, take an interest. Are there any late questions on the customer visit one? Super. Okay. So the real paper then. So I got the real paper and then I got a couple of pointers on it, some of which Declan will have covered off already. But on the real paper, okay. So as I said, okay. So in terms of the kind of basic scenario, so the exam is marked out of 100, okay, and it matches exactly the mock paper, okay. So you will get 50 multiple choice questions, okay, which you will go through, and they will be scattered throughout the course, okay, and they are worth 40 marks, okay. So you got 50 questions, you got 40 marks to try to get on those 50 questions, okay. Then you have the 2 longer questions. So there's 4 longer questions on the paper. We only need you to do 2, but for each of those 2, you will get up to 30 marks, okay, bringing the total to 100, okay. We will then convert that number back to 70, to a score out of 70. And what I will then add in is I will add in your average from the 4 short tests, and then your first assignment, which is another 10 marks, up to another 10 marks, and then your second assignment, which is up to another 10 marks, coming to a grand total of 100. Okay, so 40 marks for the multiple choice, 30 for the first long question, 30 for the second long question. We convert back to 70, and then we add back in 10 marks for the short questions that you've done already, 10 marks for assignment 1, and 10 marks for assignment 2, for a total of 100. Okay. So do allocate your time. As Declan said, allocate your time accordingly in the exam. So in terms of what's coming up, in terms of the long questions, question 1. So these may not necessarily be in order, but there is one question, and it comes from module 3. Okay. And we're going to help you out a little bit more. It comes from the early parts of module 3. Okay. So if you go through the first few pages of module 3, you will hit upon that particular topic. Okay. So if you're familiar with it, it'll help you answer the question on the day. So it's module 3, and it's an early part of module 3. And to help you out even more, coincidentally, there is a second question on the paper. So these are not necessarily in order, but there is a second question on the paper. It's also from module 3, and it's also from the early part of module 3. So if you liked module 3, you're in good shape. Okay. You may not have liked module 3, but if you did like module 3, you're in good shape, because there's 2 questions from, let's say, the first half of the module. Okay. So that's 2 of the questions. A third question comes from module 2, and it's also from towards the beginning of module 2. It makes it sound like I only read the beginning of the papers, but that's just coincidence. Okay. So module 2, the early part of module 2. Was there a question there?
No, I was just.
Oh.
I was laughing at your humor.
Very good. Yeah. glad somebody likes it. So, and then the last one, module 4. So module 4, which if I remember correctly, covers more the kind of the C part of the attack model, the collections kind of piece. So we have covered off in the mock paper. We've covered off customer visits, which is a reasonably large amount of module 4. I think it comes up to 13, 14 pages of module 4 is customer visits. It is not on customer visits. Okay, it's on something else in module 4. Okay, so you can forget about customer visits. It's not on the paper. Okay. Now there could be a question in the multiple choice side of things on the customer visits. But in terms of the long section, there is nothing on customer visits that's in there. So you can forget about it. It's from another part of module 4. Okay. Module 4 is not that long, okay? So it's one of those other sections, okay? So that's what's on the paper. So two of them, to repeat, two of them from the early part of Module 3, one from the early part of Module 2, and then there's one more from Module 4, and it's not customer visits. That gobbles up a reasonably big chunk of Module 4. So you'll notice that Module 1 is missing. Now that said, I mean, Module 1 is the base for everything because one of the key messages of Module 1 is we want to get paid on time, and everything in Module 1 to 4 is designed to try to help you do that. So that's maybe a fundamental thing to keep in mind. But Module 1 itself is not in itself covered in the long questions. Okay, the questions come from modules 2, 3, and 4. So a couple of quick pointers, and then I'm available to take questions. So a lot of these Declan covered off already, but just to repeat, it's not a scavenger hunt, okay? So people have done this before, that they say, so there's the section on, say, terms and conditions. I'll copy all that and I'll give that to Paul. We know what's in the notes, okay? We've read them, all right? So you're not going to score very high. It's not. The aim of the exercise is not to find the notes and give it to us. Now, that is part of the aim in the MCQs. Okay, so there's nothing wrong in the MCQs. The short questions, they will all be multiple choice or a kind of very quick yes/no answer. There's nothing wrong with finding that and just putting the answer in. But for the longer questions, we're not looking for a big section of our own notes. Okay, what we're looking for is for you to show us that you understand what is in the notes. So either give us the notes back in a different format in your own words, because that shows you understand, or put examples in and say, okay, so this section in the notes reminds me of a time where I did this or a customer did that. And if you can do both, all the better, okay? You're really heading for high marks. If you have examples and you have a lot of your own words, you're really heading for high marks. But it's not a copy and paste type job, as Declan said, okay? Examples will really help beef up your score. I mean, an example I'll give is, if you go to an interview, you will do a bit of prepping beforehand. You'll say, okay, if they ask me about my experience there, what am I going to say? If they ask me about my experience and that, if they ask me about a time when I had a challenge, this is what I'm going to say. Think about it. I've narrowed it down a bit. Prepare accordingly. Okay. Say, okay, let's imagine a question comes up on this. What am I going to say? Let's imagine a question comes up on that. What am I going to say? So, prepare a little bit in advance. Okay. For the multiple choice, key important part, study all 4 modules. Okay. So that is where module 1 may well appear. Okay. And it's not there in the longer questions. So there might even be a few more of them in the MCQs, okay, in the short questions. So do study all 4 modules, okay? Because I do see every year, I see people who are absolutely flying and they're getting everything right, and then suddenly they hit a patch where they get 5 or 6 questions wrong, all in a stretch, and it's because they haven't really studied much on that particular topic, okay? So do study all 4 modules to make sure you can answer the short questions correctly, okay? And the final point.
Sorry,
yeah,
Paul.
Yep.
Just for clarity then, the long questions there on the test, do we get to pick from the 4 questions, pick 2?
You 4 questions, you pick 2 of them. Yeah, you can answer a third or even a fourth if you want. And somebody on some other test, I think where there's a choice of 8, did 7 years ago, but failed 4 or 5 of the questions. So I don't recommend that. So you're better off probably just doing 2 and doing them well. If you feel you're a bit ropey on one of them and you can say, listen, I've started this, but I'm not so sure it was a good idea, by all means go on to a third one. We will mark the best ones, okay? So we eliminate the weakest one, but the other 2 we add the points for that. So it's 4 questions and you do 2 of them. You can do more if you wish, okay?
Perfect.
But I would recommend doing 2 well and leaving it at that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And just the last point I was going to make, and I'll just throw it open to the floor then. There are still a few assignments outstanding. I can accept assignments up to about Thursday, if needs be. Okay, they are a bit late at this stage, but if there are if you are one of the people who would still have something to send through, to give yourself the best possible chance of a good mark, I will accept the assignments up to about Thursday. Don't send them through to me at kind of 5 o'clock on Friday, because I'm planning on trying to put my feet up before a busy weekend. So of correcting, and not of other stuff, but of correcting. Excuse me. So don't send through to me at 5 o'clock on Friday, which people have done in the past, because it won't put me in the mood for a good mark. But I can accept most of them are in, but if there's a couple of them that are still outstanding, if you want to send them through, I can accept them. And don't if you haven't heard from me, and you have sent me assignment, do send me an email, because I am up to date with all corrections to my knowledge. Okay, so if you have any questions on an assignment that you don't remember receiving back, you can drop me a line separately. Okay. So I'm conscious we're now at 10 past. I'll throw the floor open to any questions. So
Yeah, I just say one thing there, Paul. In terms of if you ignore everything we've said to you about time management, and you find you've only answered one question, and time is up, just put down bullet points. Just attempt the question, and even if you put down 10 bullet points and you get 6 of them right, you will get some marks for what you put down on the page. There is no negative marking, so we're not going to deduct marks if you get something wrong. We can't give you marks if it's not on the page. So put something down on the page. That's like, something is better than nothing.
Definitely.
So and if it does have to be bullet points, if your time runs out, and you've only 10 minutes to go, just say, okay, this is the topic. These are the 20 things I know about that. Boom, submit it, and make sure then that you get the paper in on time. So for the credit management paper, it's 3 o'clock next Saturday. You have to submit that, and I'll acknowledge receipt, and that's that. It will be worth it in the end, and hopefully already now you're more relaxed than you were. I think that's the important part, and you can do this. You've stuck with it till now, and we'll certainly get you through. So what I'll do now is I will stop the recording for the credit management thing,